Welcome to Money Tales, where money gets personal. I'm Cammie Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager.
Money decisions often feel like a tug of war between two right instincts. Protect the children or prepare the children. Spend for what you need today or save for what you might need tomorrow. In this episode, Betsy Miller, a lecturer on law at Harvard Law School, brings a powerful framework to those tensions by introducing polarities. Polarities are pairs of interdependent opposites where the goal is not to land in the middle, but to get the benefits of both and avoid the overuse of either. Her perspective is grounded in her own story, growing up around affluence while her family stayed disciplined and worked hard. This shaped her relationship with saving and spending and still guides how she values her work and makes big financial decisions today.
Here are 3 key money topics you'll hear in this conversation. First, how Betsy and her husband practice saying no to their child even when they can afford to say yes. They've discovered how limits and creativity can create more meaning than spending. Second, how working weekend flea markets taught Betsy what it meant to earn, fueling a lifelong instinct to save and a complicated relationship with spending. And third, how Betsy learned to price her work using a simple test. Set fees at a level that makes both sides feel good about the commitment so that the work feels valued and sustainable. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Betsy Miller's Money Tales. Welcome to the Money Tales podcast, Betsy Miller.
I am very happy to be here.
I am so delighted that you are here too. You and I were meant to meet a couple years back. I was helping plan a conference for the Purposeful Planning Institute, and you were our keynote speaker that year. And unfortunately, my father died right before the conference and I missed it. And I was so disappointed. I listened to your keynote afterwards, which I loved. It's all about polarities. And I wanted to have a quick conversation around polarities because one came up in a client conversation recently. Rather than me defining what a polarity is, Betsy, I thought I'd ask you to do it since you are the expert.
I will. And I'll also say, as we have said to each other offline, I think we were destined to meet because your dad died right before that conference and my father died 5 days after. And it was a really tenuous time when I was sitting with the tension of where should I be and what is important and where is the right place to be and why is the right place to be there or here. And I had made the decision that it was a really special opportunity. And my dad wanted me to go give this particular speech that I had cared so much about. And I really think he hung on until I could come back and tell him that it went well. So that was a special time for me.
The community was really, really happy that you and your dad were sort of leading in that direction because you added so much wisdom and insight. And I remember reaching out to you shortly after your father died and on that connection point. So it's wonderful to have you here. What is a polarity?
Okay. So a polarity, we need some better elevator talk in the field, but a polarity is a pair of interdependent opposites. And what does that mean? That means two things that are opposite to each other, but you actually need the benefits of both over time to succeed. So short and tall, opposites, not a polarity. Continuity and change, opposites and a polarity. You need to be able to keep things stable in their benefits, as well as understand how you can be agile and move forward and adapt, which are some of the benefits of change. One key thing to understand is that all opposites have benefits and overuses. So when we're talking about polarities, what we really want is the benefits of both and the overuses of neither.
Okay. Wow.
I love that. It's a perfect tee up for this client conversation that I was having because I've worked with this couple for many decades. They are wonderful. They have 2 amazing children who are now young adults, and they've been struggling through the conceal or reveal conversation about their wealth as it relates to their now young adult children. And so we, during the meeting, wrote reveal the wealth, share everything, versus conceal, keep it private, not share any of the details, on a whiteboard. And we talked through and wrote down all the benefits and the disadvantages of being stuck on one pole or the other. With conceal, there's benefits, right? It's comfortable. This is what we've been doing. It feels normal. But if you conceal too much, it can keep the other family members distant from the wealth. They won't know about it. They won't be able perhaps to create the competencies and the skill sets that they'll need to work with the wealth that is appointed to them through estate planning and some other lifetime asset transfer planning that they've done. On the reveal side, the benefits are the children are sort of brought into the conversation. We can start working more robustly on building those skills and competencies that I was mentioning. There's more cohesion perhaps among the family members. On the downside of reveal is, wow, can they handle all this? This is new information. Is it going to interrupt their own motivation in life toward pursuing the career paths that each of them are on? What are the social impacts to them? Are they ready for this? Was a big question for this particular client. So we mapped it all out and we had a really robust conversation and they landed in the middle. So they decided that they were going to reveal some information about the wealth, but not everything. And they were going to go in steps. And so we've been working on a plan to do just that. And it's been really exciting.
That is really great, Sandy. I was thinking about one of the potential concerns is around expectations that the next generation might feel. And I'm curious if that came up and if you talked about how to navigate the expectations that really were unintended.
Great question, Cami, because we did spend a lot of time talking about not only what were the expectations of the children as it relates to the information that the parents would be sharing, what should they expect and what shouldn't they expect? We were looking at expectations from all different angles, and that really helped inform the map of the sharing that we've put together. And we'll continue to revisit that map as they reveal more and more information so that we can get some feedback of how's it going, what other support do they need, and how can we help them shape those conversations.
So important.
I'd love to offer you a couple of thoughts on that scenario if you'd like them.
Yes, please.
So one thought that could be really helpful to your client when you go back and you continue this conversation, it sounded like it was really rich and very much touched on two opposites that feel alive and meaningful to them. You talked about the group arriving in the middle. And I would encourage you, when you go back and you speak to them, to reframe that a little bit, because I am betting they may think they're arriving at the middle of a spectrum between revealing and concealing information. But what you actually want for them is to develop an awareness, a respect, an invitation, and an enthusiasm for the benefits of both. And so instead of thinking of it like a scale where it's 50% this way and 50% that way, when we talk about getting the benefits of both opposites in a polarity, what we're really trying to do is optimize the max amount of benefits of both. There are great benefits to revealing information about wealth. People are better equipped. They have accurate information upon which to make decisions. They can be clear with each other. They're not talking around things. The benefits of conceal, and I might pick on you a little bit for that word, but the benefits of conceal are you're not giving people more information than is appropriate or can be handled at a particular time, and you're ensuring a certain degree of both discretion and guardrails around what can happen. If you let the information out of the bag, it's hard to put it, I'm mixing metaphors here, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle of the bag out of which the information came, right?
That's
Well
right.
said.
What you're actually talking about is the benefits of both and the overuses of neither, because what the family shouldn't want is to reveal information in such a way or to such excess that it is overwhelming or unhelpful or indiscreet or damaging. And you don't want to conceal information to such an extent that people are paralyzed, unprepared, and untrained with what to do when the next chapter happens. So I would offer that tweak.
Love it. Thank you, Betsy.
And I want to also encourage you to really work with the family to use the word and instead of versus every time you've got a polarity. Because the mindset shift that we're hoping we get our clients to is an appreciation and an invitation for both, and an understanding you really cannot have one to the exclusion of the other over time and succeed. You're going to need both.
I love that. Yeah, they come into the conversation thinking it's an either or.
Right.
And we're trying to arrive at the both and.
Correct.
So.
This is so good. Oh, Betsy, let's now turn it over to you and kind of putting a spotlight, but that's really valuable information. I know we'll learn more. Would you briefly introduce yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that have influenced your journey today?
Sure. It's hard to choose. Okay. So I'll start with my name. I'm Betsy A. Miller. The A is for Alexandra. I mention that because I wish that were my first name. My first name is Betsy. It has never been the right first name for me. And surprisingly, my sister's name is Elizabeth. So it's a little hard to understand how that happened. My parents never quite gave us a great answer other than the fact that we are named after two different great-grandmothers. One was named Bertha. The other one was named Elizabeth. I guess we're calling it a win that I'm not named Bertha.
You're not Bertha?
No, I mean, no offense to any of the modern day Berthas that are out
That's
there.
right.
I haven't met you. Maybe you can talk me into it. So
You haven't wanted to otherwise change your name officially.
I toyed with trying to go by Alex, trying to go by B. Alexandra Miller. I answered to none of them. And so I settled into enjoying my initials, which are BAM. And I think of that as BAM. So I have a sign behind me that says, BAM, I am my own onomatopoeia. So that's
fantastic.
that I think is like the origin pivotal moment if you're birthed into a name that doesn't fit and then trying to make it work. And then I would also say I come from New England. I am Jewish, not really practicing, sort of a spiritual but very culturally Jewish person. And the combination of growing up in the New England Protestant work ethic, buttoned up, closed down, sort of very private. We don't talk about money there, and a culture that is all about some degree of family obligation, a lot of guilt, great amounts of worry. It is an odd juxtaposition as a culture and a personality. And I would say my entire life has been drawn to making sense of juxtapositions and putting myself in circumstances where perspectives don't seem to go together, and yet there's value in them. And so I would say one last pivotal moment was I was lucky enough to be among the last group of students that Roger Fisher, who wrote the Negotiation Bible, Getting to Yes, one of the last group of students that he taught personally and then who TA'd for him when I was at Harvard Law School. And learning from that master about integrity, communication, the art of persuasion, managing both relationship and task, that changed everything about how I inhabited my later career as a lawyer, as a coach, as someone who worked in politics.
Wow, we need more of that. That's incredible. I love that introduction. Thank you, Betsy. Let's go back to your youth growing up in New England and tell us a little bit about learning about money and how you did so as a kid.
So it's really interesting. I grew up in a very affluent town on the southern shore of Massachusetts, in the not super affluent part of that town, born to parents who were both academics. My mom was a mathematician who worked in Henry Kendall's lab at MIT. We like to say she finished on a high note because when she had my sister and me pretty close in time to each other, she retired. and that lab later won the nuclear prize for discovering the quark. And she was a relatively junior person in the lab, but that was her only job after college. She worked in that lab. And my dad was a research pharmacologist. And I grew up in a family that heavily valued education and did not place as much importance on things material. However, there were things that my parents said no to, sometimes because in principle they said no to them that other children could have. And sometimes they said no because we did not have the money. And my mom is a really frugal person. She ran the books and we lived within our means. And I, now as the mother of a 12-year-old, think a lot about the value of saying no to your children so that they don't have everything that is cool in that moment to have. I still remember not having the Benetton sweater and the
Oh,
bright
Benetton.
jeans and the gray high top Reeboks. I have now placed myself firmly in the mid 80s.
Betsy, when you heard no when you were a kid, was there a conversation around why no? Meaning it was a financial decision? Did you all talk about it? And how'd that make you feel if you did?
I have a lot of respect for how my parents handled this because I think they struck a very thoughtful balance in that they did not share with us the degree of financial stress that they might have been under trying to raise two girls for whom they wanted to have certain things, right? My parents valued music lessons and access to the arts. And obviously, we weren't walking around in tattered clothes or anything. They made sure we had all the things that we needed, but we didn't have enough to have everything. And that was clear to both my sister and me that no, and making choices. And sometimes you need either or choices, Sandy, right? You can have this, but you can't have that. You have to make a choice. That's not a polarity, right? That's a decision. We understood that without understanding the depth to which times were tight in some ways.
And so I'm curious, with that experience, Betsy, and growing up in an area where you're surrounded by affluence, it sounded like, when you just went off to college and you were thinking about your own career, what were your money thoughts at that point? Were you thinking about money, or were you thinking about passions and interests? Or was there some combination?
It's a great question. I was cognizant of my responsibility about money. When I got into college, I was offered multiple full scholarships to various schools. And I had a decision to make about whether, in the end, to go to the school I went to, which was Dartmouth College. And we had good financial aid, not the same level of generosity that thankfully exists today, where the school covers all financial aid. You don't have to take out loans if you qualify for financial aid now. But I remember having a conversation with my parents to say, is it worth it? Is there something so special about this experience that would make it worthwhile to incur for myself at the time in the early 90s, about $25,000 in debt, which was a lot then. Today, in today's money, that would probably be $150,000. And for my parents to contribute what they could and to take some grants. But the school doesn't offer academic or athletic scholarships. And I remember my mom being so clear that she felt like there was something, I get choked up thinking about, there's something special enough about this experience to make something of it. And so I felt, and I had a work-study job, actually I worked all the way through college. I was always very frugal with my money, but I went with a very clear conscience that the academic experience was worthwhile. I also want to be clear that that is one choice, and there are many choices, and it is a smart and good choice to make the experience what you want of it at a different place. For me, there was something special about being in the wilderness of New England and playing soccer there and being a comparative literature major there. For me, that was the right choice. That doesn't mean it was the only choice. And I was confronted again by a money choice in law school, if we get back around to that.
Well, let's go.
Yeah, and I do want to underscore this idea that you made an intentional choice. And I think that's super powerful.
Especially as a young person.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge.
I felt that it was an easy choice. Some money choices are harder. It was an easier choice because it aligned with a value system that I understood. Growing up in my family, getting the best education you could get was worth the money, even if it meant you had to give up other things. And I gave up some other things for that. When I was applying to law school, I had an interesting experience because I took the LSAT and I had some dental work done. My parents were away. I had my wisdom teeth taken out. I was on Percocet, and I think my boyfriend had just broken up with me. And I used all the good sense that a 20-year-old student heartbroken could use, and I took that LSAT. And can you imagine what happened? Didn't work out the way I intended.
Yeah.
That's a reflection point. And when the score came back, it changed everything for me because I was counting on being able to get into a certain level of law school that either would have loan forgiveness for public service after the school or would give me scholarships to go, because I did not want to undertake the risk of the hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans unless I knew that I had a safe path for paying them off. And I didn't want to commit myself to working in the private sector at the time. And the choice I had to make was, I guess you're going to have to give yourself one more chance to do this, figure out how to score high enough up that when they average the scores, it all works out okay. And if it doesn't work out okay, you're going to need to make a new plan, because I was never going to go and owe that kind of money. It worried me too much.
Ooh, so the stakes were very high that you were putting together for yourself.
Yes, that is what we call the experience of your natural consequences. It was a useful life lesson.
So it sounds like you took the test again, and I'm guessing the results were strong.
The results were lucky and strong. I had a very lucky day on the logic game section. It all worked out. I did get scholarships various places, and I did get into schools that had loan forgiveness afterward. And so I was able to pursue the career that I always thought I would have.
I feel like I just heard a big sigh of relief.
And my mother's probably still sighing. I think she, as I said, lots of worry in the family. So,
and Betsy, why did you decide to pursue law?
The real reason is because
I want both reasons.
Okay.
The reasons you told others, and then the real reason.
I have always narrowly escaped being a therapist. I am so drawn to human interaction, the human mind, how we learn, how we communicate, how we influence each other, what meaning we make of language. As I mentioned, I was a comp lit major in college. I studied Freudian psychoanalytic theory as applied to sociolinguistics and the development of like slave novels in Latin America. I went full esoteric. And if I had had my druthers, I would have gotten a joint degree, a JD, and a doctorate in education where I could have continued studying at a really deep level all of the cognitive theory. Again, a money decision. I couldn't justify going to law school and then getting a second degree just to satisfy my intellectual curiosity. That was the freedom I had in college. It was too much for graduate school. I still wish I had been able to do it, but I didn't have the money to do it. But I remember being told that if I became a psychologist, I would just spend the rest of my life pondering my own problems and make my children crazy. And that stuck with me. I was really worried about doing that. So I went to law school and then hung out with all the other lawyers who should have been psychologists in the negotiation program and in the ed school program. So I tried to maximize what I could from the place I was at.
I love that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you satisfied this intellectual curiosity through the work you were doing, and you were continuing to develop your understanding of polarities. Would you bring that to life and let's put an overlay of money as you were making decisions in your career and extending it? Can you share a little bit more about that?
I didn't know what a polarity was then, so I only learned about...
No, but you referenced something about the polarities, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but it's been part of your life, I think, from the very beginning.
What's been part of my life is putting myself in spaces where I see perspectives that don't belong together, and yet they do. So I've always been very curious to understand all sides of a story and to make meaning from that. And to see, for many years, I studied and I taught negotiations for 17 or 18 years before I turned my attention to this polarities, both and thinking. And I believe really powerfully in the value of curiosity around perspectives that are not your own. A lot of what I studied in college was about the dangers of othering things and people that are different. It's very present in our country right now and in the world, especially right now. So that esoterics muscle that I was building in college feels relevant now. If we can stay curious and make meaning from perspectives that are not our own, we can usually arrive at a more robust, full outcome. And so that has always, each step of the way, whether it is the comp lit stuff and then the negotiation stuff and then the coaching school and then the polarities work. And in the middle of that, getting my certification as an accredited leadership coach, some people would say it was really funny. I spent 25 years as a litigator, prosecutor in politics. I just did it my own way. And I think it really informed how I was able to meet people where they were and help find elegant solutions. And then as I got older and sort of developed my thinking a little bit more and came across this polarity stuff, not everything has a solution. With a polarity, you have to navigate or leverage the benefits of both. It's not an answer, it's a respect and an invitation to be able to hold things that seem like they don't belong together, but actually they do.
So Betsy, this has me wondering how all of this studying connection experience in your career life and your intellectual curiosity has played out in your personal financial life.
I'll tell you a quick pivotal story. So one thing about growing up in Boston in the late 70s, 80s, early 90s is there used to be a department store there called Filene's Basement. And if you're familiar with Filene's Basement, the real Filene's Basement in downtown Crossing had a very special thing about it. And that is the longer an item was on the rack, the steeper the discount. And so you could, try to hide the shirt, you come back next week, do all kinds of things, but you want the 75% discount. So I, as a person of limited funds, became a bargain hunter shopper early on. And I think that did something both helpful and unhelpful for me. And the helpful thing is that it taught me to wait, and it taught me that you can't buy something just on impulse. You have to decide you really want it, and it has to be for the right price. The problem is, if you're bargain hunting all the time, you never allow yourself, and to this day, I'm almost 52. I don't know the last time I don't feel good when I purchase things full price. I feel like I've been taken. Like, why should you purchase things full price? You should wait 21 days and then it will be 75% off. And if it's not, you shouldn't get it. So there's that. It causes me to be like...
It stuck with you.
It stuck with me. And I'm like a squirrel with money and presents. I don't ever like to get to the bottom of the well. I want to make sure there's a nice nest, a nice cushion.
And are you sharing this perspective with your 12-year-old, or are you hoping to help them think differently about money?
It's a different world now, partly because there is very little physical money anywhere.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
By the time I was 12, a couple things were true. One, we were handling physical money all the time. We would go to the penny candy store at the center of town, and parents would give us $2 or whatever it was before you go to the movies, and you could pick out the 17 pieces of candy from Bendinelli's that you could afford, and that was it. And you would pay for it, and you would get change, and you would feel it in your hand and in your pocket. And that doesn't exist anymore because my son does not have a smartphone, and he also doesn't have cause to be exchanging currency very often. It's only a couple of times a year that we send him out with money, and about 50% of the time he comes back with the change he's supposed to, and about 50% of the time he's still not sure what pocket it ended up in. That is an issue, but we try to say no to things. And my husband and I are able to purchase more things than my parents could purchase for us. So we're very clear about it being a matter of principle. And I wonder sometimes whether we should also be saying, because we can't. And I'm torn on that because it's not true, but I think it's helpful for a child to understand it's not just a matter of principle. Sometimes you can't. You don't have.
Well, I think you're saying there's limits, and yeah. I think it's a true answer in the sense of you cannot just keep consuming. Even the wealthiest of the world, there is a limit to what you can buy. And so there's a yes and here. So because we can't, but also because we choose not to. I think there is an important message there.
It's the same thing with social media these days, right? If you're on it too long, you get the dopamine hit and then you go numb. If your children have everything, nothing is meaningful. I will always remember the birthday for my son when he was, I think 3 was the year that he was into kitchen spices and toilet paper. And his birthday, we went to Costco and we bought like 4 cases of toilet paper, built him a toilet paper house, put his stuffed animals in it in the morning, and then laid out the kitchen spices that he could mix, and the wonder in his eyes. And that birthday cost us $18 or something.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that experience and the memories last forever. And I do think also sometimes just explaining to children other uses of the money, right? We're not doing this because we're doing this other thing.
I think that's right.
Can be really helpful.
And I want to offer one other childhood experience that I don't know, there's no way to replicate it for my child, and I'm not sure that I would. But because my parents were working in academia and because we still had financial obligations and saving for education and being able to live in this town in our not fancy house with my not fancy, not Reebok sneakers, we did something that none of my peers did. And that was on Saturdays and Sundays, we woke up at 5 a.m. almost every weekend, all year, and we went to a flea market where, quite surprisingly, we sold rock and roll concert t-shirts and sunglasses. That was the side business for the family. My dad worked in the lab during the week, and then we were hawking Motley Crue shirts on the weekend, and those were back-breaking, long days. Like 4 a.m. until 5:30 in the evening days in the hot sun. And that was a lot of my childhood.
What do you think you took away from that besides the hard work and the heat and the labor? What did you take away from that that's impacting you today?
That I saw physically my parents working to make a living, that we were part of that and we were expected to help, that we were paid for it and we earned a commission, and that we were able to go out and buy some things with that money that we had earned. That really set the stage for by the time I was about 16. And this flea market thing continued through college until my parents were done helping to pay for college, and my sister and I helped until then. And then we we closed up shop and never looked back. But I had a real job outside, and that was a real job, but I had a job at a place of employment as a waitress starting when I was 15. And I became responsible for the things that weren't necessities, right? Not medical stuff, not school clothes, but anything else I wanted, I had to work to earn.
And did you actually spend?
Okay, so you've asked a good question. This is the problem. I did. My sister spent more. I hoard because I am nervous that there's not going to be enough. And so it's hard for me to enjoy spending past a certain point. And in my adult life, I don't ever want to worry that there's not enough. And so that sometimes prevents me from buying things that would give me a lot of pleasure. And sometimes I buy things and my husband's like, what just happened? I thought you were frugal. So it's not totally rational, but it stays with me.
It sounds like you're testing your own boundaries a little bit because you're conscious of it.
Yeah. And I would
trying to balance between the making sure you have enough and you're squirreling, and then also enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. It's a save spend polarity. It's a present future polarity. Mm-hmm. And I took a money workshop, like a relationship with money workshop, a couple of years ago. And one of the things that came out of it was I realized in all the years of negotiation expertise, right? Because I had been deeply involved in that community and I had taught that work. So I have a pretty nuanced sense of how to negotiate settlements or how to negotiate fees. But that workshop taught me something different about money, which was and I say this especially to the women out there or to people starting new businesses, when you are deciding on your fees, it's a really helpful metric to think about it as, what is the amount of money that makes you feel good and me feel good about the work we are committing to do together? What makes you feel good and me feel good about the work we are committing to do together? And that has been such a guiding light for me when I set or negotiate fees in the work that I do, whether it's in the both and consulting and speaking space or in the strategic counseling space that I do with companies under investigation. Because otherwise we make choices where we end up feeling like our time wasn't properly valued and we don't enjoy the work.
Great insights and advice there, Betsy. Tell us, what's your next money conversation going to be and who will it be with?
Oh my God. So this morning we put an offer on a new house.
Woohoo! Exciting!
And that negotiation is ongoing. We've lived in our current house for 15 years. It is very comfortable financially for us to stay here. And we realized it's not great for what our family needs right now. Our dog needs a backyard. We live downtown in DC. Our son needs to be closer to school. Our time spent where everything needed to be absolutely walkable around the corner, that was our married life before we had an almost teenage son. And now we need to do something slightly different, and we need to put a lot of our resources toward it. And I think the thing that makes me most uncomfortable is the possibility of being confronted by these choices where if we do this, maybe I can't do that. And so that's been a lot of the conversation my husband and I have been having together. But the next conversation that's actually happening is with the seller's agent. when she says, we want you to pay X, and we say, how about X minus whatever? And then she says, last, best, and final, like, do we want the house enough?
Yeah, well, you must feel really good going into that negotiation. If anyone has the skills to be able to work magic, it sounds like you have them. And
getting to yes.
Luck with that. Yes.
And I'm here to tell you, because it'll be too late for anyone else to do about it. The answer is going to be yes, we want the house enough. But I'm hoping they don't push us that far. But that feels freeing to me. I'm not sure I would have been able to say, yes, we want the house enough 10 years ago.
Oh, congratulations. That's huge. Well, Bam, would you tell us where's the best place to find you digitally?
Okay, so I, for many years, was a privacy and consumer protection lawyer. And so I'm not really on social media, but you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can Google Betsy Miller plus Harvard and my faculty bio will show up. And very soon, I will have my very own website. I am currently laboring over the language, but hoping that will pop up when you search for my name soon too.
That is super exciting. And thank you very much. I learned so much through this conversation with you. We really enjoyed having you on Money Tales.
Same. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Asperient. Go to asperient.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@asperient.com. See you next time.